Welcome, John, to The Root of Our Health. It is such a pleasure to have you on this podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing well. I'm excited to be here. Thanks so much
Yes,
for having me.
definitely. Well, I'm just going to jump right in, right? So, talk to me about migraines. So, what are some of the statistics of people with chronic migraines?
Oh man, migraines impact almost 39 million Americans in the United States. It's about a billion worldwide. It's one of honestly the most underdiagnosed and underappreciated diseases that we have. You'll hear people say, "Oh, it's just a headache. Just go lay down, go take an Advil," and that just couldn't be further from the truth. There are so many neurological challenges with migraines, things like you get the aura, you get nauseous, you get tingling in your fingers sometimes with numbness. There's so many different elements to it, and everyone has it different, right? There's sensitivity to light, sensitivity to sound. It makes it unbelievably challenging to just live a normal life. And so, with almost 12% of the population, 18% of women, 6% of men. Just a very, very challenging disease to live with.
Yeah, and again, I was just mentioning one of my clients has migraines, migraines for a long time that goes into headaches for several days. She's not the only one. So it's interesting that you said it's more women. So why are women more susceptible to migraine suffering?
So I'll be upfront. I'm not a doctor, so I'm going to give you
Sure.
what I've read and what I understand. I think hormones definitely play a big role in a lot of people with their triggers, and from my understanding, obviously women are going to deal with more hormonal things than men are, and so that's where a lot of women are triggered by different
Got it.
hormone
Yeah,
levels.
completely understandable. I mean, that in general, no matter what, would give some headaches, to most women. And then if you have other things that, are on top of the hormones, and that could definitely increase the migraines and um, headaches. So talk to me
Yeah.
about your history with migraines or your story. So would love to learn a little bit more about
Yeah.
you and why you're getting into this space.
For sure. So migraines have been something I've just dealt with my whole life. I'm 36 years old. Ever since I was 7 years old, I've been getting migraines. And so I get what's called cluster headaches. And so those are, for me, comes in anywhere from 3 to 5 in a span of like a week. And then I won't get another one. I'll go into a remission for about 2 months. And so that cycle for me has continued. And yeah, there's ups and downs with the clusters. Sometimes I'll get two, sometimes I'll get seven, but it averages out to 3 to 5
Okay.
every 2 months. However, this past January, I got 12 in about 3 weeks, and so just every other day, I was getting knocked out and having to go lay down in a closet in my office, and it was just brutal. And so decided right then and there I was going to find more holistic ways to manage my headaches, and came across a book called Heal Your Headache by Dr. David Buchholz. He's a neurologist that worked at Johns Hopkins University for many decades. And he used an elimination diet with his 3,000 plus patients over those 3 decades. And what he found was foods high in tyramine, histamine, sulfites, and nitrates are all very common triggers among his patients. And so that kind of shows up in foods like nuts and chocolate and soy, gluten, artificial sweeteners, MSG, even things like citrus fruits, spinach, onions. There's a whole slew of things that you kind of want to avoid, which makes it extremely challenging for people living with migraine and trying to follow this diet. And so I did start to implement the diet. This was about a year ago, back in January of 2023. Started to cut things from my diet, just be more aware of the foods that he found were those common triggers. And within about 3 months, I was seeing about a 50% reduction in my headache, in my frequency. And since now it's been about a year, I've maintained that 50% reduction. So now I'd say I'm averaging about one per month, where I was before averaging, 2 to 3 a month. And so it's been really, really transformative for me. And I realized, why was there not a brand making it easy and convenient for people following this diet to adopt it? And so I went online, I was looking for brands that were doing what I'm coining as migraine friendly or trigger free food, and no one was doing it. And so um, in January, I kind of, or really it was then February, March, I decided I was going to quit my job, quit in May, and went full time in June. And so I've been working on this since June of 2023.
Wow. Very, very cool. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing your story. It is interesting. I've heard about the elimination diet, but for a very different reason. Elimination obviously is definitely what we need to understand triggers in general. If we have food
Mhm.
sensitivities, migraines, things like that, even if we're thinking that we're eating a very nutritious, meal or diet, you said spinach, you said nuts, things that were like, okay, well, I'm eating healthy. Why am I still not feeling well? So it is very interesting. And yes, did you, when you went to a doctor, what kind of doctor did you go to? Did you go to just a regular practitioner, or was there like an integrative? I'm just curious.
I've gone to a lot over the years. I saw a headache specialist here in Austin, specializes in migraines, and he was just really looking to just give me more medication. He was telling me about the latest medications, and I don't have chronic migraine. Knock on wood, where people who are getting attacks every day, every other day, medication is very much needed. Now, I still think there's more holistic ways you can start to mitigate, and it won't go fully away by any means. But if you can, lower your frequency by 20-30% with more holistic ways, supplement that with some of the medication, that's fine. And I think that's great. For me, I didn't feel I needed to be on preventative medications, which I was always being pushed. And so I decided, to instead of going down that path, I can deal with a couple per month. And so I said, listen, let me go learn about some of the more natural ways that I can do it. And I had to do that research on my own. When I went to doctors, it was just, here's the latest medication that's been tested, and I just
Yeah.
didn't want that.
No, and yeah, and that's amazing that you just did that, because a lot of people would just go, and because they're fed up, right? They're fed up with having the headaches and having the migraines. They're just putting all of the trust into a professional's hand. And yeah, again, I'm right there with you. There are certain things that medication do need to be, front and center and needed, but not pushed, right? So it's
Yeah.
interesting that
Yeah.
nutrition is a huge trigger for headaches and migraines. And so I like that you kind of went that route first, and then kind of scaled back on certain things, and
Mhm.
then that's healed. So are you saying then the migraine will still be there forever, or is this something that you can, you know, get rid of altogether?
Everyone's different, right? And I'm also going to preface, I'm not
Right.
I'm not a doctor. This is from my research, but everyone's different. Everyone's going to have different triggers. Some people claim that they have no dietary triggers, and that may be true. I think one of the challenges with migraine disease is that it's a combination of a lot of things. It's stacking of triggers. It's not one trigger necessarily. So the concept is called threshold theory, right? It states that we all have a threshold and we all experience triggers in our day to day. Those triggers can be food, they could be dehydration, they could be hormones, could be stress, weather, um, it could be anything, right? Whatever those triggers are for you. But those triggers stack upon one another. And as soon as we kind of reach our threshold, an attack is activated. So ultimately, what that means is you could consume triggers if your threshold is currently low, or if your trigger load is low and it's not near the threshold. You can consume foods that you may actually be triggered by. They are just, it's contributing to the rise of your trigger load. And so it makes it very challenging for people to really understand their triggers fully, because you may not get an attack every time you encounter a trigger. And so that is extremely challenging for people doing an elimination diet or whatnot. But yeah, everyone's got different triggers. I don't believe it is a neurological disease. I don't believe it's going to go away just because you do some dietary modifications. But if you can minimize its impact on you day in and day out, if you can lower the frequency by 10-20%, you're making an impact on your own life. And so I urge people to at least give
Yeah,
that a shot.
definitely food first, right? So speaking
Yeah,
of
yeah.
which, what are some of the foods that we can eat that won't that you, I mean, obviously we're talking about your path through this, but also what you've learned. What are some of the functional foods that we can eat, or people that are suffering, that will minimize the effects?
So for me, I'll speak for me, and then I can speak a little bit more towards what I've seen across this from the Heal Your Headache diet. But ultimately, for me, I cut out caffeine. So caffeine is one that is very controversial in the migraine space. It definitely helps people alleviate their headaches because it is a vasoconstrictor of blood vessels, and that's what's happening in the brain when you get an attack is the blood vessels are dilating. So it helps alleviate a lot of the pain and symptoms. But having too much caffeine can actually cause what's called rebound, and it actually will make those blood vessels inflame, at times where you're not drinking it. So, I've decided to cut it from my diet. In the last year, I haven't had a regular coffee in over a year. I will do some decaf, but I think that that's definitely helped with my attacks. Now, in the first few weeks, I got more attacks. So it was difficult to cut, and you have to know you're going to go through a withdrawal, and that will impact your headaches. But I found that once I got through that hump, it really helped me. So that's the first thing I did. The next thing I did was I looked at kind of my snacks throughout the day, the things that I'm doing on the go, right? And so I used to have Kind bars a lot. I loved like the chocolate Kind bars, but they're packed with chocolate, with nuts, with sugar, with very high sugars. I decided to cut those. And so now I'm trying to, eat more fruits and stuff like that. And there are fruits, unfortunately, that are considered triggers. I've more or less stayed away from the ones that the book has recommended. I don't know if they're triggers for me, but things like raspberries and citrus fruits are high in tyramine. And so, it's advised to kind of stay away from those, which is surprising, right? Oranges
Yeah.
and pineapples, you think of them as very healthy, and they are healthy, right? But they are high in tyramine. Then you've got spinach is another one. Again, I still continue to eat spinach, but you have to know what's right for you. It's, I believe, high in histamine, and so if it's extremely high in histamine, that is another one. So you'll want to
Is
look to avoid. Some
I was just
people
going to
that
ask, is there a
oh,
difference between cooked and raw? Do you know?
that's a good
Okay.
question. I'm not
All
sure.
right, because I heard like
I'm not
raw,
sure.
in general, it's better to cook the spinach versus eating it raw because it has high choline and has like other things in it. So,
I'll
yeah.
look into
Okay.
that. That might be true.
Okay.
I'm not sure. One thing that I advise people that don't really think about this is
Yeah.
almond milk is another one. If you're drinking almond milk and you want to go non-dairy, almond milk is
Yeah.
not good potentially for people with migraines. Again, nuts very high in tyramine, and so you may want to avoid that. Switch over to like an oat milk or
Mm.
organic coconut milk or something like that. So I've definitely noticed that. I've switched over to oat milk. I used to do almond milk, totally changed that. So those are some big ones. Again, the way that I approach it is you don't have to be perfect. You have to be aware of some of the things that you may want to avoid. And if you make daily choices to stop consuming those, you're going to slow down that trigger load, and it should, or hopefully, minimize some of the
Yeah.
frequency.
Great. And so in the book, was that also that was presented the elimination diet in there? Is that where you found it?
Yeah, he talked a lot about. So he started off talking about
Okay.
really caffeine
Yeah.
and getting out of the rebound cycle. Then he goes into the elimination diet. So I could kind of off the top of my head, mention a bunch of them. So nuts, chocolate, soy, gluten, artificial sweeteners, MSG, citrus fruits, dried fruits, any type of preservative. Aged cheeses is really bad. So anything aged, nitrates, so foods like deli meat and bacon and ham, anything like salamis, prosciuttos would definitely avoid. Red wine, beer, very
Yeah.
fermented. You want to avoid anything high in yeast. So actually, bread, like fresh bread that comes out of the oven, high in yeast. So you want to avoid um, flava beans. trying to think,
Yeah.
onions, another one, peppers. So there's a whole list, and you can find that
Great.
list online. But yeah,
Okay.
there's a
Well,
lot.
thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely link that book in the show notes as well so that people can reference. And then, if there's any other resources, to kind of guide for that, I'll do that as well. So you
Yeah.
mentioned snack bar, or you mentioned snacks, right? So then I'm kind of getting a correlation. So why snack bars? Why were you going down that route? Was that the reason you couldn't find yeah, let us know.
Well, yeah. So snack bars are an easy, convenient thing for people to just take with them on the go. And I think that is generally the hardest thing for people to follow this diet is on
Yeah.
the go snacks, because you stop by a grocery store just to grab a quick bite. What are you grabbing? So I think that was really the reason why we started there. When I look at Amia, we're not a snack bar brand. We're not even a snack brand. We're a holistic migraine health brand, and we are approaching it through diet. And so to me, it's, long term, the company is going to look to, really own the pantry and fridge of households living with migraine. We want to make it easy and convenient to find foods free of those common triggers. And so, it's not just a snack bar, but, that's where we
Awesome.
decided to start.
Awesome. Are you thinking down the line, where's this going? I know it's strictly online, of course. It's a little new, but
Yeah.
what's your outlook like future with and can you pronounce, what is it, Amia? Okay, and we're
Amia.
gonna go
Yeah.
back to that and how you got that name, but I want to understand, like,
Yeah.
is there do you have like projection or things like you want to accomplish in the next, like, I don't know, 3 to 5 years with this?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got my projections and kind of my strategy and plan all laid out, my vision and mission to really lower the frequency of headaches for
Yeah.
people across the world. And so, my goal is 20%. Long term, if I can lower the impact of migraine on society by 20%, that'd be a home run. I'm not looking to stop migraines from I'm not looking to fix the migraine you have. I'm looking to hopefully help you alleviate it from even coming, and through just education, diet, and all of that. So that's really ultimately my goal. But yeah, I've got plans, 5, 10 years down the line. Now obviously I have to take it day by day and month by month and year by year, but right now it's just available on my website and actually on Amazon. We just launched on Amazon about a
Nice.
week ago, so on Amazon Prime, and then we will be looking to get into retail stores by the end of
Great.
2024.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything like this on the market. I mean, well, I haven't done any digging, so I'm asking you because
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah,
like you said, you haven't found anything, that will help this niche, right? These people that really, really is a problem, and it's something that we
yeah,
definitely need to put out there in terms of nutrition. Like, people are, again, medications or, you know whatever you could do outside of, let's try and change your diet. So have you been with other, like, are there a lot of competition in the space, or are you just pioneering this altogether?
I'm
Nice.
pioneering it. Let's go. This is the first one. I have trademarked migraine friendly. I've trademarked trigger free. I'm trying to create the trigger
Okay.
free category. So the way I view this is, you've got the gluten free category for people who are sensitive to,
Yeah.
gluten, and generally people with celiac. There's about 2.5, 3 million people in the U.S., 3 to 4 million, I think, actually, that suffer from celiac, and it's a $2.5 billion U.S. market. There's about 29 million Americans who have the common allergies to foods, and that's a $9 billion US market. So I'm trying to create the trigger free category, which is designed for people with migraine. And, that if you just do the math, it should be larger than the allergen free and gluten free
Beautiful.
combined.
Beautiful. Well,
So
good luck, definitely. So then why the name?
thank you.
But
So Amia means friend in Latin, and we are looking to be your friend on your migraine journey. And I like the fact that it's short and it's got the little mi in the middle,
nice.
and so for migraine. So I didn't want to have anything around migraine. I didn't want to talk about it because we don't like the fact that we deal with this, right? But I think ultimately we want to be a friend and partner in this journey for
That's
you.
great. Yeah, because it's the other way would sound more clinical. That would as a
Yeah,
consumer, where this is welcoming. This is very, like you said, friendly.
yeah,
So yeah. Well, again, good luck. So that's amazing.
yeah.
So speaking of
Thank you.
which, where could, people reach out to you, get these? Let us know, where can we go? You said Amazon, your
Yeah,
website. So
you can go to helloamia.com. It's just hello,
okay,
HELLOAMIA.com. So that's the website. Plenty of information. Right now, we're selling four types of products. So we have three different flavors, and then we have a variety pack. So we have an original, which is essentially just the gluten-free oats. It's gluten-free oats, gluten-free oat flour, pepita seeds, chia seeds, flax, and
yeah,
hemp hearts. Those are the core products in there. And then natural sweeteners, agave and brown rice syrup. We use coconut oil and then just a little bit of salt and konjac, which is like a root, a healthy root that kind of binds it. And so those are the ingredients in the original. Then we have a coconut, which is coconut flakes. We add that from the original. And then we have a cinnamon, which is the original plus cinnamon. So then you can get a variety pack on my website or on Amazon. So you can check us out
nice.
on Prime.
Do you make these all yourself? Is this something like you put together and everything else? Like, how did you get with the recipes? Come up with the recipes?
So I'm not a recipe developer or anything like that. Or a cook or a chef or anything, but I did work with a professional recipe team, recipe development team down in or up in Colorado. And so worked with them to kind of build the formula, and then I'm manufacturing in Houston. So
Mhm.
I live in Austin, manufacturing just a couple hours away in Houston. And yeah, I mean, we I've been around for 2 months. I made 15,000 bars to start. I'm almost sold out, and I'm going into production again next
Nice.
week. So, yeah, it's been
Great.
moving quick.
Great. That's amazing. So yeah, I'll link again everything up in the show notes. Was there a discount code that you can give, or is that something?
Oh man, I'll
Okay.
make one for you. I don't have one.
Yeah.
Let's do one for
Uh,
your audience. So, what
how
do you want it to
about
be? I'll write it down.
let's do huh, root. Let's do root health. We'll do it that way. Yeah.
Root Health. Okay, we'll do Root Health, and we'll do it for
Perfect. So
15% if
root
that
health
works.
15 or
Cool.
just root health? Okay.
Just Root Health. I'll throw Root Health, and it'll be 15% off, and anyone can go to the website and
Awesome.
order there.
Amazing, amazing. Awesome. Anything else that I didn't ask that you wanted to touch on today?
No, I mean, I think, well, this was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. I think ultimately it's about just education and understanding, what you can do, because you can do things, right? You can focus on hydration. You can focus on on what you put in your body. You could focus on getting a little more exercise. And it's not going to necessarily cure you, but just having that knowledge is power, right? And it gives you control to know that, hey, I may not get rid of this, but if I can take this into my own hands to minimize the impact of migraine on my life, that's what it's all about. And so we're not here to get rid of them for you, but we're here to put you in a position to
Yeah.
take control.
We all have choices, right? We all have a choice. What we put in
Yeah,
our body, put on our bodies, what we do,
yeah,
in general, is either going to hurt us or help us. So you're definitely
yeah,
in the
exactly.
helping camp. So that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope so. I'm
I
trying.
mean, you kind of answered my last question, but I'm going to ask it anyway and see if you have anything else. So my last question that I ask usually is, what is a favorite quote or any words of inspiration you can leave us with?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think you're
Yeah.
in control, right? And you control your life. I think that is really what it comes down to. And we all deal with challenges, and it doesn't mean that we control everything, but it's your mentality, right? It's how you approach life. And if you have two choices, you could either succumb to things that are challenging, or you can step up and say, I'm going to fight this, and I control it, right? And I always like to believe that I, I'm in control. And so I think just have that mentality, and your mental strength, and can take you a long way.
Great. Love it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sean, for being on. And
Yeah,
yeah,
thanks, Elizabeth.
so to my audience, you are worth it.